Hi, good morning, it's Dean from maverickstar. A little bit later on, if you're interested, I can do a video for you showing the HHO generator with some piezo's attached to it. So the idea is that we're going to, on all four surfaces of the tank, we're going to put a piezoelectric there, and we can send the signal through the container to see what effects that has. I've got some industrial piezos on order, which we're going to use as well. They're used for cleaning medical equipment. I forgot the name of what they call it, but basically that's what they're used for. So we'll give those a go as well, but we'll see what happens when we put the piezos on the four surfaces of the tank, so we can generate the signal through the tank, and we'll also connect up the coil inside, which will add the frequency inside there. So I've never seen this done before whilst using electrolysis, but we'll just see what reaction we get from that. We've also got to go through the different frequencies with the signal generator. I think we're up to the thousands now of hertz. So we know at between 400 and 600 hertz we can manipulate magnets to rotate. That's an interesting thing. We might stick with that. We'll see what happens when we run that signal through the water on each side of the tank as well. But getting back to this, Kerry live at the COP28, looking at the road ahead discussion at Davos 2024. He's saying that the last COP28 was a bit of a failure because of certain words that was put in a document regarding the petrostates, committing to doing away with oil and natural gas. Obviously, when they're burned, they produce CO2. And Kerry has came out in this interview, and he's talking about the 1.5 degrees temperature increase as a result of carbon if we carry on our footprint. But in the next minute he says, according to the scientific survey, we're already 1.48 degrees. Talk about selling a dead horse. They're almost at the 1.5 degrees, and they reckon it's going to go over that. Well, if you measure temperature, global temperature, on a mean basis at surface levels, you can come up with whatever temperature you want, basically, whatever temperature you would desire, because the correct place to be measuring the temperature is in the troposphere, not on the Earth's surface like they are, because we all know what asphalt does. It absorbs heat, and if you've got a temperature station in a car park where there's a lot of asphalt, or next to a road, all these are going to be contributors to errors in temperature readings. And that's exactly what they want, because they want to prove this. But they're going to come unstuck. They really are going to come unstuck a little bit further down the road in time, when I'll show you this next chart, when this starts to really take effect on our planet. Let me get the chart up for you. When this starts to take effect, and you can see at the right hand side of this chart where we are, we're at the end of an interglacial cycle. So we're going to be returning back into another 90,000 years of cold temperature. If intelligent, they would realise, first of all, where we are on this Milankovitch cycle, 100,000 year cycles. They would realise that, if they just wait a little bit, CO2 is going to naturally fall, because the climate is going to go cooler, naturally. Now, whether they are, they know this, and what their idea is to just scam trillions and trillions of pounds off the world's taxpayers, and then at a later date say, look, we've caught the planet through reducing that little bit of CO2 that doesn't even account for a prime gas in our atmosphere. They're going to say, look, we've cooled the planet down, and they're going to ignore this chart even more so. And look, we've reduced CO2. You couldn't make this up. And whoever come up with this scam isn't very, very clever, because, I'm not the only scientist that knows about the Milankovitch cycle. Even those in NASA know about it, and they even attribute it to climate. But these at Davos, these people at COP28, won't even acknowledge charts like this. They won't even talk about the Milankovitch cycle. They won't talk about the medieval warm period or the Holocene period. They won't talk about any of this, or the fact that we've had warmer climates than what we're at right now. They won't talk about any of these things. So it's obvious what their game is. They're there to steal money on fraudulent science, nothing else. They're not contributing nothing. Remember this. These people are unelected, first of all. Those at Davos, those at the United Nations, and those at the European Union are not elected. And they say to us we live in a democracy. But here's the thing. They're being dictated to by the United Nations and the European Union. And, Davos and COP. They're being, our governments that we are, proclaimed to have elected in the democratic society are being dictated to by these agencies and organisations like the United Nations. Do you understand what I'm saying? How dangerous this is? They are demanding trillions of pounds. If you think that that won't come out of your pocket, you're very wrong. If you look over Europe right now, and because of the European Union, going on about now methane as, a very toxic, gas to our atmosphere that's going to accelerate global warming. If you look, first of all, at how much methane is in our atmosphere, it's 200 times less than what CO2 is. And CO2 is a trace gas. It's hardly worth even mentioning because it doesn't even account for, 0.5% of the gas in our atmosphere. And if they start talking about other gases like nitrogen, forget it. Because nitrogen naturally is in our in our atmosphere at a rate of about 79%. But what are you going to do with that? If they want to live in a world where there's no gas, then put them on a rocket and send them out into space. And at least these people like Greta Thunberg will be happy because there's no gas out there. Leave them out there, see how long they last. It's ridiculous. They want to reduce the amount of CO2, and that means they'll slow down the production of natural vegetation on our planet. That means it'll make it harder for us to grow food. We can accelerate, like they're doing greenhouses, CO2 to a concentration of 10%, 12%. Let me tell you something right now. In your living room, your CO2 gas is at about 1,000 parts per million. Are you feeling lightheaded? Are you about to pass out? Let me tell you, when you walk out your front door, it goes down to 420, 430 parts per million. So your living room right now contains more CO2 because of you breathing than anything else. And, nobody is talking about these things. You go on a crowded train with a CO2 detector and the alarm will go off. Because everybody on that train in that compartment is breathing and respiring CO2, and it will go off because the amounts go up to about 2,500. And have you ever heard of anyone passing out through excessive inhalation of CO2 on a train? Never. You never will. You see, they don't argue these things, these people, and you know why that is. You know why it is. First of all, they're criminals because they're unelected and they're dictating to governments that are supposedly democratic governments that have been elected. Secondly, why are they doing it? What is the motivation? Where's the inclination, and why are they doing this? It's for the money. Do you understand? It's for the money and the contracts. Contracts to build more useless solar fields, using up good agricultural land that could be used for growing food in a time of crisis, which we're in right now. We're in a real time of crisis, trust me. Our land is naturally going offline because we're getting closer to that glacial period. No one's paying any attention to that. We're in a crisis period because our Earth is going through a magnetic reversal. The last time we completed a magnetic reversal was 780,000 years ago. This is a rare event that's back on our doorstep right today. Nobody's talking about that from these organisations. They wonder why, and this is a quote from a woman at Davos, we have lost the initiative with regards to capturing the attention of the general public with regards to the mainstream news and legacy media. Why is that? Because we've seen how they behave, how not just one media outlet behaves with regards to relaying that that propaganda news to us, but how they all react. And that's why people go to social media platforms now, because people are more experts in their own field, sharing information like we do on the magnetic North Pole. You won't get someone on CNN or the BBC talk about the magnetic North Pole in the same way as I will. And they wonder why people that have interests in these topics go to social media platforms. They have lost the initiative, and they ain't going to get it back. And they're going to try. I know they're going to try. And, you know, if you watch Dr. Campbell the other day, he regulated himself the other day. He put a video up and then he said, well, you know, what the idea is here is I took it down because we live to fight another day. So he's regulating himself. This is what they've done. Because we know if you don't take videos down which are considered against the rules with regards to YouTube, they will remove you. And they will remove your website. And after enough strikes, they'll kick you off YouTube. And we're all going to end up at some point on Rumble, but Rumble's going to go the same way. Trust me, they are scheming away behind the closed doors in the dark rooms, ways to suppress these companies that are not regulated as they would like. So, you know, it's a no wonder nobody in the public arena trusts these government organisations or legacy media now, because they've proved to us time and time again that they are liars. They direct their own narratives. You know, if we look at what's going on with Donald Trump, some of the reporters won't report on Donald Trump's even successes and landslide victories in his campaigns. They won't even mention his name. You know, they say that is democratic. It's ridiculous. Bottom line is as Kerry says at Davos, you know, they've already reached 1.48 degrees Celsius of the avoided 1.5 degrees temperature rise. And that's according to him, coming out of his own mouth. So right now they're flogging a dead horse at the tone of trillions of pounds. You know what? I can understand why people are angry in Europe right now. If you look at the farmers that are protesting in all countries around Europe because of their, you know, subsidies have been withdrawn for the fuel and other subsidies as well. And then you've got the problem with extra taxes because of methane gas, extra taxes because of CO2. It's a scam. And what are they damaging? They're damaging the agricultural businesses that puts food on all of our plates. I don't see many people supporting these farmers from the general public. I just see farmers and lines of tractors in the streets of Berlin, you know, Belgium, and other European countries. Why aren't all the people coming out in support for the farmers? Because at the end of the day, without farming, you can't go into your supermarket and have that wide range of food, enough to feed your community. So remember, it starts with the farmers. And if they're having a rough deal and nobody's supporting them, you know, they're just going to get tarmacked. You know what they've described these farmers as? Terrorists. Can you believe that? If you don't comply or listen to what they say and do as you're told, you're a terrorist. Let me tell you something. Kerry's a terrorist. Biden's a terrorist. Richie Sunak's a terrorist. Macron is a terrorist. They're all terrorists because they've abused the public's trust. They've abused the public's money. They're terrorists. Them are the terrorists that need to be imprisoned, but no one is putting them in prison. They're putting whistleblowers in prison, like Julian Assange. You know, they've ostracised people like Edward Snowden, you know, for coming out and telling people what they was actually up to. They don't like the truth coming out. And I will be surprised at where they go at the next level. I will just say this. Do you really think anything has changed on the grand scheme of things with the way human beings think in the last 90 years? Do you know why I say that? Because 90 years ago we was in the Second World War, watching the Germans first of all burn literature, and then, you know, we saw the death factories open up in Auschwitz, Poland. You know how far are we back from that point? When they can't control the populace the way they want, what will they resort to next? When they're admitting right now they've lost the narrative on controlling legacy media, what will they turn to next? They're going to start incarcerating people, putting them in jail. You know, they're going to start kicking people's front doors down, taking their computers, going through the computer. If there's any harmful information that is deemed not popular to their agenda, then the computer will be seized. You'll be banned from owning a computer at some point, and you'll be banned from talking in public. Now, I could mention people's names in this country that have been protesting about certain things. I won't. But you would be surprised at the levels they went to stop this guy. They put him in jail. They allowed the prisoners in jail, and it was probably encouraged to abuse him in jail. And he's out at the moment, but they've told him he's going to go back in if he keeps on. He's banned for turning up to protests, which is super against our human rights. But, you know, they are steamrolling over everything now to get their way. They just want all your money out your pocket, every last bit of change. They won't stop till they'll get it. And they'll keep coming up with ideas to justify these organisations and the cost of these organisations when we are already overrun with these organisations. I mean, do we need the FBI, the CIA, the DEA and the local police force and all the other organisations like MI5, Mossad, you know, and they just go on and on, the anti-terrorist squad, you know, all these different organisations that we pay for. Do we need them? You know, it's crazy. They're saying that they're not getting enough money for, you know, in these COP meetings. They're saying that the countries aren't willing to give up, you know, producing oil and gas, which is their only revenue. What do they want them to? What will they sell if they're not selling some of these countries, which is their only main form of revenue? What will they sell? Desert sand? There's not really a big market for that, but there is for natural resources such as crude oil and all the petroleum products that come from that, and natural gas. There is a market for that. And if that's your only thing you've got, look, it's like that you know, that expression. If all you've got is a hammer, then everything is going to look like a nail. You know, you can't blame these nations for not signing up to COP28 in the fullest respect, because what these clowns, these idiots, the buffoons, what they are suggesting is that these countries give up their natural resource production and therefore give up their main income source. What alternative have they given to do so? What incentive? None. Just do it. No, that's why, you know, these other countries, these petroleum states, as Kerry calls them, have not signed up to it. They won't. Because you're signing up to your death if you do. If that's your only income, you would do it the same. If the only thing you could do was drive a truck and someone was telling you you're not allowed to drive a truck because of the pollution that it creates, what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, jump out the cab, there's the keys, I don't need to drive that again, and I don't need to earn no money, do I? My family are going to starve to death. And of course you're not going to pay the mortgage, are you? Or the rent or whatever. You're not going to put food on our table. Oh yeah, of course, here's the keys, sir. I won't drive that truck again. It's not going to happen. You know, we live in a real world. You know, what they're after is just money. They're just criminals. They need locking up. You know what? We are supposed to have a democratic system. You know, that's what we go to war over, all these other countries saying we've got this democracy. It's not. It's just plain and outright utter theft of taxpayers' money. These people need chucking in jail because it's a gross mistrust of public trust and their money. All these ideas that they come up with are always over budget. Have you noticed? Oh, this is going to cost £2 billion for this. HS2 is a good example here in the UK, the high-speed rail. No one's going to use it from what I can make of. Everyone said, you know what, if the ticket costs an extra £10 and, you know, okay, only saves 15 minutes on the journey, if that, then I'll take the slow train, I'll spend the £10 on a sandwich and a coffee and enjoy not arriving that 15 minutes earlier, but enjoy the coffee and the sandwich that you've saved on the extra fare. And let me tell you something now, that's another example of something running over budget. It was supposed to be 2 billion, it's over probably 4 billion now. It's not even going to be finished to the plan that it was originally meant to. This high-speed rail isn't going to be as long as what you think. And they've to get the money now to finish even this smaller version of this project off, they're having to sell the land that they purchased in the first place so that they can use that money to finish off, you know, this disaster. You know, I could go on and on and on. Another one is the British aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth classes. One of them is stuck in Portsmouth at the moment, unusable, and I think it's been benchmarked because the first one they built, and he's in test at the moment, keeps breaking down and costs too much to run. You know, let me just put this into perspective. Russia hasn't even got one working aircraft carrier, and that is a much more bigger country than ours, has a lot more people in there than what we have. And if they can't afford an aircraft carrier, then how the hell are we supposed to? But I want to say this, you know, the money that is being directed to all these plans and these projects and these wars is a total squander of taxpayers' money. You know, what about spending the money back on the infrastructure in the countries that raised that tax money to start with? But Richie Sunaks of the world, you know, the Bidens of the world want to give, you know, billions of pounds away. Biden's set to give 61 billion to the Ukraine. You know, Richie Sunak has just given 2.5 billion. You know, what about the doctors that are striking because there ain't enough money being paid to them? What about, you know, the crisis that the NHS is in right now? I don't know if you're listening to me in the UK, but let me tell you this. There's a 6-month waiting list for a biopsy of suspected cancer. You know, that is an unrealistic time for a biopsy to be done. A biopsy should be done within days of, you know, suspecting cancer. But there's a 6-month waiting list. Only for the rich, you'll get your cancer biopsy done immediately. I'll give you a good example. King Charles right now is in hospital because of prostate cancer. Do you think he waited 6 months before he had his biopsy? No, but I know firsthand that somebody's been told it's 6-month waiting list and they suspect they've got stage 4 cancer. Incredible, isn't it? That's your NHS for you. And how many trillions does that cost the taxpayer a year? You want a doctor's appointment? You're nearly waiting a month to see the doctor. If there's something seriously wrong with you, you're going to die in this country now because of the pathetic state the NHS is in right now. You know, why is Richie Sunak investing that 2.5 billion into the NHS? To improve the service. Much needed improvements. It's a world which is rapidly moving forward in the direction of hell on earth, and it could be a heaven on earth, but you know what, we just live with corruption. It's sad. That's why, you know, I do things now like these experiments with the HHO generator. You know, if I ever come up with something, I'm just going to give it freely to people, because there's no point trying to get money off of patents, because patents are just going to get stolen. They'll wait for the patent to expire. They cost too much money to start with. All the patents I've had now have expired on all the things I've patented. But I realised when I was in that dream world of, you know, I'll patent it and then I'll approach companies with non-disclosure agreements and things like that. They just wait for your patent to expire and then they use it. It's no good. What your patent office is a suggestions box. You don't think it at the time, but it's just a suggestions box that is going to get opened by all the people that will benefit from it. It's a sad, we're living in sad times, you know, it's just everything across the range is sad at the moment. So, you know, if anything ever come about, you know, being able to produce hydrogen at a faster rate using less energy, I'd just give it away to people. Just ask that if ever, you know, there is talk about who invented it, just mention, you know, give that person a bit of credit, that's it. You know, we live in shocking times where the truth is being ignored. If ever we are in the future looking back at this time, you realise the fingers will be pointing at all these governments saying, how incompetent was this government at this time, and how the hell did we ever evolve from this disaster that has took place in the 21st century? And that's why I said, you know, human continuity is at risk. And there is no continuity plan for human beings. There is a continuity plan for sustained war, the further reduction of agricultural land during a time of crisis where we are merging back into a glacial period, which all these mainstream legacy departments seem to overlook. Frustrating for me, frustrating for a lot of scientists. You know, there is no project funding for me other than what we managed to raise by you guys listening to this. The money for the signal generator and everything else, you know, came from just donations. You know, the piezo crystals that came in the post today was from just donations by you guys. I didn't demand taxpayers' money for this projects. You know, I just rely on, you know, the occasional person chipping in a few bucks here and there. And I might as well mention now the link in the description box, which few people use. You know, you need to get on board and back your men up, is all I'm saying. You know, we're in a war, fighting for the truth, fighting for, you know, real beneficial technology to mankind. And if you want to get behind, you know, that sort of thing, then there's a link down there you can help. I might as well round it up here. I think you get the picture. You know, European Union, the United Nations, these crowd at COP28, it'll be COP29, further scrounging of taxpayers' money beyond, you know, impressive amounts of trillions. You know, it's just going to continue until we all stand up and say, fuck off. Enough is enough. For some, they've already arrived there. Anyhow, there's a link down there if you want to help support what we do, and if you're interested in seeing that video later on where we attach these piezo crystals to the HHO generator, let me know, and a bit later on this evening I'll do a video and show you what's going on with that, if anything. And the only other thing for me to say is you take care of your loved ones more now than ever. You know, how will we ever look back at this point in time and ask the question, how did we, if we do, make it? So we usually do. As always, bye for now.